Hey, Ronnie. What's up, Thomas? Thank you guys for joining. It's the end of a long weekend, so the crowd might be a little thin and live, but replay will always be there. Hello, Mr. Larry Blum. How is he doing? Joel, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining in. Yay! We are going to do some conscience staring today. Keeping the subject light. Hope you're enjoying the theme music put together by my brother. What's up, Thomas? The name of it is Can't Let Go. All right. Lisa, how you doing, love? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Boy, I tell you, thank you guys for being so generous with your time. I know it's not as busy as it would normally be. What's up, my friend Vince? But I really appreciate you guys joining on to see what we've got going on the soapbox. I really appreciate the support. More than you knew. This effort is a community effort. All my family, my friends, they all support me. They give me input. They know that I am trying my best to... What's going on, dude? Vance, I see ya. I'm trying my best to get this point of view out there. So if you know anyone who has anything they need to get off their chest, any pressing issues, anything that's trending, bring it to the soapbox. I love to talk. Just a few more seconds here. And we will get on. Alrighty. You guys are full of turkey. Turkey and chocolate cake for me. What's up, folks? Welcome to Soapbox Sundays. I am Jermaine Taylor. Folks, this Tuesday, December the 1st, is World AIDS Day. It was established in 1988 to show support for people that are living with HIV and AIDS and to commemorate the many that have succumbed to the disease. Now, today is all about awareness and solidarity. So we're uplifting, we're pushing, we're speaking hope and positivity into this pandemic as well. I have two guests, two different vantage points. One of my guests, my first guest, he was there in the beginning. He had a very up close and personal view of its onset. A lot of questions and a lot of answers that they just didn't have. And he's here to share those experiences. And my second guest, more of a relatively today, a recent analysis of what more must be done to make sure that we one day hopefully get really close to just wiping out this disease. So if you hold on, I'll bring on my very first guest. Hold on, guys. We are waiting for him. I tell you, he's a bundle of energy, people. Yay. Wait a second now. He's on his way on. Woohoo. You guys are full of turkey? I know I am. All right, Ronnie, are you there? Okie dokie, Ronnie, I see you. Are you on? Ronnie, where you at, my friend? There you go. What's going on?
Not much. Just this new world of this stuff that we do online now. Weird.
Yeah, I know. I tell you, I don't even like trip up on the little hiccups and things like that with the technology. Because sometimes when I'm watching ABC or CNN or all the, cable news stations, they're having issues with their people jumping on and freezing and losing audio. So it's par for the course. Folks, let me tell you about this entertainment veteran that I have on my show. Y'all don't understand what you're witnessing here. Broadway vet, Showboat, Hello Dolly. He originated one of the leads in a chorus line. TV's Beretta, welcome back Carter, Laverne, and Shirley. Folks, this is entertainment history. He's still active. He teaches dance classes. He does a lot of consultations. He's very active in the fight still. But today, he's going to share his up close, his front row seat to what he saw when this crisis first hit our land. And I'm so glad to have him on here to be so generous with your time and with your knowledge. And I know you're going to help people and get them to somewhat, wrap their minds around the seriousness still of this issue and of World AIDS Day 2020. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Minus some PTSD. I'm fine. Yeah.
Wait, post-Trump disorder?
No, post-COVID disorder. Oh, and Trump too. Yeah.
It's a lot. It is. And
yeah.
Everyone that's affected by it, we wish them a speedy recovery, nothing but positivity and healing. But today, we're uplifting. We're talking about World AIDS Day that's coming up this Tuesday, December the 1st.
Can you see me okay? I can't.
I can. You're fine. You're totally fine.
All right.
As I mentioned in the introduction, Ronnie, you were there in the beginning.
Yes.
When all of the uncertainty was like at a paramount. Can you describe the mood, what you guys were feeling, the anxiety? What was that like?
Well, anxiety is probably the best word to use. We didn't know what was going on at the time.
Right.
Started around 1983. And 83. And everybody was losing friends left and right. And at that time, AIDS was called GRID, Gang-Related Immune Deficiency Disease. And we used to see like the big old buff guys, in the theater world and stuff. You suddenly see them after having not seen them for a while, and they were as skinny as I am. And you kept wondering, what the hell is going on? And then we found out it was this thing called GRID before they changed the name to AIDS. Once they got further down the road of research of what was hitting us all. Because we were just out there living our showbiz, gay lives, dating whoever we were dating and doing whatever, not knowing that this virus was ticking us off one by one by one by one by one by tens of thousands in just a few years. Yeah. So it was frightening and alarming and very disturbing. And for somebody like myself who was working at the time, you were grateful to have a job, but you knew this thing was going on and you didn't know how you could get it or if you had it because there was no test. And
you were on a tightrope, it seems.
Yep, very much so. And until the ELISA test, which detects HIV exposure, came out in 1984, we didn't know what was going on and how to explain who had this virus. And I was on the road with LaCaja Fold, and the test came out, and we were in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was on USA Today, big splashy headline in color. And I thought, uh-oh, I need to go take this test. Because when you're touring with shows, every city they have doctors and dentists and gynecologists and whatever, and you just check in. So I called and I made an appointment, and about 2 weeks later, I got the results that I was HIV positive. I found 2 little books in a library in Baltimore, thin, like 16, 20 pages, and that was it.
Right.
So I went on my merry way doing that tour, and after the tour ended in 22 months, I came back home to New York, and the poop had hit the fan by then, because
Did you
99.
feel like when you found out of your status at that time, did it feel like more of a life-changing thing, or was this something you had wrapped in your mind that you were going to deal with, you're going to get past, or did you immediately go to that dark place to where you thought there was nothing, no hope for you? Where were you when you found out, and mentally when you found out?
Well, I'm a pretty hopeful fellow. You know, I think I
Hmm.
always have been since I was a kid, a young gay boy growing
Right.
up in Ohio. I
Yeah,
found that insight within myself somehow. But
that's survival, honey.
yeah, that was just my
Yeah,
fire and who I am.
yeah.
I don't know how that person developed, but that little boy was sort of kind of afraid, but he was working and he wasn't going to
Hmm.
worry about it until he had to. But like I was
Right.
saying earlier, I found these two little books to get some information. There was
Hmm.
Zip, because those little books didn't tell us anything.
Hmm.
And I remember
Were
on
there not health professionals there to kind of fill in the blanks,
nope,
or you were just left up to your own devices?
your own devices and the people you talked
Wow.
to that were still in New York. And the
Hmm.
cast, was losing friends left and right. Every week we'd have, several cast members would get a call from somebody they knew in New York that had
Yeah.
died of this thing. And nobody knew what this thing was.
It's funny you keep calling it a thing because I know it to be something identified. And I'm listening at the difference in generations right now.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time, it was just a thing. And that's so troubling, to know that you're a part of this huge demographic and it can't be identified as to what it is that's picking you off one by one.
Right.
Wow. The mental acrobats to even get through that, that's very commendable.
Well, what else could we do? Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we could do. Some people panicked like mad.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, as I have over the years when I've spoken about HIV/AIDS a lot,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many people that aren't around now that various reasons of why they didn't get my good fortune. They
Mm-hmm.
panicked, their own internalized homophobia, not able to handle being sick and dealing with it, so many reasons. And it just depends on where you fall into that spectrum, the kind of personality that you had to deal with it in your own particular way. What I
Did it
did,
force people to come out the closet?
well, the white people did, the black people weren't. You know, the black men weren't.
Yeah.
For years, I called myself Negro number one, because all
Yeah.
the black song and dance men I knew on Broadway, they're all gone. I mean,
Yeah.
every one of them. I'm it.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
generation, those dudes worked a lot of TV shows and they did
Yeah.
Broadway. They were all keeping it very close to the vest because of the community and our black community and not having support and relatives. All of that stuff secretized, if that's a word, our
Mm-hmm.
community, our black community, from talking about it. And it
Yeah.
only really started to get talked about more once it started to affect black women.
Mm.
It always comes to the women to get to speak out about this. Because even when I was suffering from being ill, it was my women friends who were coming to my aid mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I had men that would take me to and from the doctors or drop me off at the hospital and do that. But it was the ladies who stepped up and were supportive. The guys just chicken pooped themselves right out of the situation.
Mm-hmm. When you watch footage, when you watch shows, movies that center around that time period, can you get through it okay? Or are you picking it apart like that's not happening? That's not the way it happened. That's not the way it happened. How do you settle yourself when you're watching something that you lived?
You know what? I don't watch a lot of those,
Mm-hmm.
because the few that I did watch weren't terribly accurate. I guess the
Yeah.
closest was the Tom Hanks movie.
Mm-hmm. Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that those movies ticked me off because it was always about the white gay men who had
Yeah.
HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
Because the medical community wasn't talking about us. The
Right.
press wasn't talking about us. TV shows or would have on gay activists who either had HIV/AIDS or knew somebody, and they would profile them and give them platforms to talk about it. And by the time I got around to sending in a manuscript that I had, I was told that the network was too oversaturated with HIV/AIDS movies or plays or stories.
Mm.
So there I was, left out in the cold again, because the story of Black gay men with HIV were not, the networks weren't terribly interested in. That's just the honest truth from my perspective.
No doubt, no doubt.
Because you can go back and look up those old shows and you don't see chocolate on those shows unless it's candy.
No, no. Do you remember the actor from In the Heat of the Night,
Yes.
Rollins? It was after he passed that I knew when he passed up. And I remember when he started to decline, he did this one interview. Nobody really talks about this interview, but I forget which show he was on. He was on the couch. And he came out in the most flamboyant persona that he had ever been. And I forget what show it was, but that's what he did.
What was that? Oh, I forget.
Do you remember that? Because I think they took it off the air because you can't even find the footage of it.
Ah.
Was that pretty much the mindset of those that knew that there was just no hope? They would just live out loud and just make sure that their voice was heard in their truest form before they eventually succumbed?
I guess, I don't know. There was like Raymond St. Jobs, the actor. And it was never divulged what he died of, but we're pretty sure it was HIV/AIDS because nobody was talking about it. When I went to memorials of the Black men that I knew that had HIV/AIDS and died from it, nobody even said their relative had AIDS. It was always something else. It was always this huge shame about it. And I couldn't wrap my mind around, wait a minute, you brothers have had to deal with families that are ticked off because you're gay. They can, it's a choice. And now you're dying, and then the family wants to deny what you died from in the obits of the services that they held for friends and family. It was such a disservice to those men that fought damn hard to stick around, and for whatever reasons, they didn't make it.
Yeah. Even when I was coming up, there were several in my community that we all knew. Now, mind you, I was in Texas, so the language wasn't really strong. We just sort of speculated as to what we saw in the media, but we all knew what was going on. And the conversation was always at a whisper. And me growing up as a Black gay kid, hearing those murmurings about it, knowing that it was in such a really dire light, it didn't bode well for my mental, capacity. I've always equated being gay, Black and gay, with one day succumbing to HIV/AIDS. And it was just a lot of ignorance. What sort of turned the conversation for me, and I hate to admit this, was when Magic Johnson disclosed his status.
And that he was cured.
Yeah.
That's what pissed my ass off. Pardon my
And that bothered me because it took someone so disconnected, for people to all of a sudden change their thinking about it. And I still have a sore spot about that because it's not like there was a magic bullet, if you will, pardon the pun. We still are dealing with it. There's no cure. But him having it, being a quote unquote heterosexual man, is sort of made it easier for the Black community to address.
Yes.
Does that rub you still?
Oh yeah, because the initial gossip. Thank God we didn't have Twitter and all that crap like we
You're
have.
right,
Now.
Miss Pilates. They called it pneumonia. You're right.
Because as it was, people were saying, "Oh, he must have had sex with men to get that."
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been the case. It's particularly in the Black community forever and a day. And as we know about the whole down low thing. And then there was Arthur Ashe, who very graciously,
Yeah, he was one, but for some reason there was a nobility in his. I don't know why. I was able to separate myself from my angst with him.
Right.
Because it was no fault of his own. And totally.
I don't know if it was Magic's handlers, his agent. I don't know what it was, but it was such, speaking of Trump, you mentioned earlier, it was very Trump-like to not just say, I'm taking medication for it now, but I'm not cured. But the uproar was that he said he was cured. And he later took that back. But by then, the poop was already out in the world.
Yeah.
And he took a lot of flack for it, and I did a lot of disservice to those of us that were fighting like hell to remain
Yeah.
alive when there weren't medications to really guarantee we'd stay alive. There were medications to handle certain segments of the illness because it takes different forms on different
Yeah.
people. No two
Exactly.
people have ever died of the same thing the exact
Yeah.
same way. There was that pneumonia that was a big killer.
Right.
At
Your
one
friend
time.
Manette told me to tell you hi. She's on the feed. Manette.
Oh yeah, hi, yes, I saw her. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw what she typed in Gary Chapman and
Yeah.
yeah.
She's a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for being on, Manette.
Yeah,
So,
I did dancing with her.
oh, she's a
And
fellow artist. Oh,
yeah,
great.
oh yeah, she's
Yay.
a
Thank you, man.
wonderful dancer, redhead dancer.
Uh,
And we lost a lot of people from that cast over the
mhm.
years.
Did it ever unify the community, or was it pretty much people were out for themselves?
I want to say yes and I want to say no, but it's some of both. Because
Oh,
what happened was that there was like a political bifurcation of the white gay community and the black gay community. Because I came along in that generation where if you went to a white gay bar, the doorman would ask you for 2 or 3 pieces of identification because they just didn't want black people to come into those bars, certainly in West Hollywood. I don't know what it was like
really?
in New York because I had left New York and come to LA by that time. But yeah, there was that separation. And since it was all about the gay men, the white gay men who had HIV/AIDS, all the press was going to them. And also because I hadn't been asked to speak about this because I certainly would have had I been asked at that time. I would have lent my voice to it. But like I said earlier, our voices were not even inquired to even participate in the discussion about HIV and AIDS. It
Wow.
was difficult.
Was that all political? Was it all pretty much of the spin because they had the economy, they had the commerce, they had the attention to what few people politically that would listen? Was it designed that way? Because sometimes, and I hate to admit this, we have to play the hands that are dealt to
Right,
us.
right. I think
And
it
if
was
it's those
most,
white
sorry,
gays that have the access, you sort of have to piggyback
right,
until you rebuild our own.
right.
So is that where we were?
Well, and the white gays were up front and out there being the what I call the fur trappers. Those were the ones with the arrows on their backs when they'd go
Mhm.
into Native American territories hunting for whatever they were hunting for. They were the ones that were found with arrows in them, and that was with the white gays that spoke out. But
Yeah,
they had a stronger community of support, and they
yeah.
were loud from act up on, let's
Mhm.
get this out because the government isn't helping us.
Yeah,
And the religious right was just as wrong then as
yeah,
they are now in many circles about a different subject. The subject
yeah,
now is Trump that they support, but they weren't supporting us who were living with AIDS, saying we deserved it because of our sin of having sex with other men, yada, 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 until their women started contracting it.
What parallels to the current pandemic that we're in right now would you say that the epidemic of AIDS in the 80s have? Are there any
COVID,
similarities? Huh?
COVID, COVID, wear your damn
Really?
mask. You don't have to
Yeah.
have sex to have COVID. You just breathe the air. Wear your damn mask. And when I see
Yeah.
these people refusing to wear their mask and hear them saying it's my free speech and my right not to have to wear one, well, good. But take care of the people around you that don't
Exactly.
want to get sick if you're carrying something that you don't know you have.
Yeah.
It's a level of selfishness that I cannot wrap my brain around.
It's a suspended way of disbelief to me. I don't understand it. I really don't. I know it's an inconvenience. There are times when I'm a little bit, inconvenienced by mine. I have to pull it down when I'm away from people just to, breathe some fresh
Well,
air.
me too. Yeah. You don't
But
see people
for the
around
greater
you.
good, I'm understanding it. So I don't quite understand the hill they're dying on when they say that. I feel like it's more of a allegiance to something else that this show won't be addressing today.
Yeah, because that's a whole other ball game about what those
Yeah.
people's minds are about. Because Don't get me started. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Ronnie, what keeps you fighting, sweetheart? What keeps you here? You're 70 what years old? I know you still tell your age. What
Six.
has kept you on the battlefield for so long? I mean, I know you've seen some pitfalls and
Ooh,
sometimes it made
baby.
sense to just let it go, but you haven't. So what keeps you fighting?
That little boy who knew he wanted to be a dancer someday in Dayton,
Yeah,
Ohio at 7 years old, that
yeah,
found his goal when Miss Bessie Grady took me to that dance class in my local
yeah,
community center. My mama
right.
didn't take me. Miss Bessie Grady took me to that class. And that class was wow. And it was a
Yeah,
simple little class. The teacher had like a little hand drum and a little, the drumstick had a ball on it, like an
yeah.
Indian drum, except she had it in her hand. And she
Your
pounded
memory is
out
still
these,
vivid.
oh God, yes. We
Yeah.
had yellow oilcloth tunics we wore and little black briefs, bare-legged, barefoot. You ever touched oilcloth? It feels
I
like
don't know if
it
I have. I'm
feels
sure if
like
I have. If I did, I didn't know I was touching it.
it feels like the paper you use as a kindergartner to finger paint.
Okay.
It's shiny and slick like that. And I guess they used to use it for tablecloths.
Yeah.
Well, they devised the buttercup yellow. You know, I was in heaven. And she did simple little steps for us, some hops, some skips, some little minor turns, little
Yeah.
slides. I was perfection. I did every one of them perfect. And that stuck in my memory because this was something that I knew I could do, that I was better than everybody else,
Wow.
instead of little neighborhood kids calling me sissy, even at that age, because I
Yeah.
guess I was. I didn't know I was a sissy. I was just being Ronnie Dennis. That's
Yeah.
all I knew how to be. I wasn't
Right.
straight. I liked girls because they were my friends, but I
Yeah.
didn't have sexual attraction to them from 8 on when little boys start to flirt with them and pull their hair or do whatever little straight boys do.
Yeah.
That was not my thing.
Yeah.
So that class gave me fire that I knew this is something you can do. And
Yeah.
it never left me. And when I got sick, it's always that little boy that comes back to keep me fighting every time I was in the hospital.
Isn't it beautiful how the child that you were and the child that you're still trying to live up to, those dreams that that child had are still saving you?
Yes, yes,
And that's
very
a
much
beautiful
so.
thing to
Yeah.
know.
The other part of that child that developed, it'll be January 4th will be 4 years since my brother and I had to place my mother into an assisted living facility in Glendale because she has dementia.
Yeah.
It's advancing. She still knows me, yada, yada, yada. But after I put her, I hate saying put her, it sounds so, well, that's a
Yeah.
big thing. You know what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean? I don't mean it
Yeah.
disrespectfully because I go see her every Sunday normally anyway. When she was there, I got into therapy for 2 years and started to figure out the level of anger that I found out I had from not sticking up for myself when I
Mhm.
was this young kid growing up, of being called names and boys in the neighborhood making up stories about me coming onto them, and those little down low teenage boys
Yeah.
that I won't mention their names were trying to sneak over to my house to hang out with me, and it wasn't to play cards, if you get my drift.
This show has been all about healing. I tell
Oh
people all the
yes.
time, you don't heal the things that you can't talk about. And you have let us know a lot of things that have been pressing, a lot of things, a lot of interesting perspectives that we just didn't know,
No.
particularly as it relates to the Black community and the evolution of this whole entire epidemic of AIDS and HIV. Ronnie, you are a treasure. I thank God that I know you. I'm so glad that our mutual friend
I'm an
Larry Blunt
antique treasure
introduced us.
now at 76.
I really appreciate you hopping on the soapbox today and just giving us that insight and that knowledge that we all need, because you
Thank
can't
you
know where
for
you're going until
asking.
you revisit where you've been.
I've
And
had
you
this
have been there.
I've had this ribbon since the 80s,
Oh
and I
wow.
have a couple others. Um, just know that I am as equally surprised at my survival as any one of you that I call my friends now. And the last thing I want to say, I guess, is that my generation that's gone, they took the receipts of my youth with them. So there's nobody to talk to about that.
Right.
And that's a very lonely and disheartening feeling as a Black gay man.
Yeah.
That you don't have your Black friends around at my age to talk to about those hell days. Mm-hmm. And I always try not to get emotional, but it just happens. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I'm here. I know I fought like hell, and here I am. That's all I can say.
There's more for you to do. He keeps you here because there's more for you to do.
I guess this is
part
of
it.
Part of it. Yeah.
I love you.
Thank you.
And I love enjoying the fact that I run into you randomly at the grocery store. That always makes me happy. You have a good Sunday, and thank you so much for jumping up.
Thank you for having me. You are so welcome. And thank everybody for coming in to listen to this. I'm really appreciative. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you. You blessed us. You have a good Sunday. I'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Bye.
And folks, that was the beautiful Ronald Dennis. He is, I got to tell you, just a joy to know. Been around for years, a wealth of information, always joyful. You never know that he was battling because he keeps it pretty much on the up. You know, everything is always positive with him. And so I just love his beautiful soul, and I'm so glad if his friends had jumped in and chimed in. So my next guest, let me see if I can get him on here. All right, I'm having those same issues again that I had with the last one. All right, let's see if I can get Mr. Vince Durham on here. All right, let's see here. I may have to stop this and start all over again because it's not allowing me to get. Let's see here. For some reason, it doesn't always allow me to take the first guest off, so we may have to like jump off and jump back on just so that I can get Mr. Vincent Ogletree on the soapbox. So what we're going to do is, folks, we're going to just go ahead. Let me try to remove him one last time. I can't remove him, so I'm going to end this video. We're going to start another one in like a second. So just hold on, and when you see me back on, jump right back on, folks, okay? Bye-bye.